Hi everyone. Before we get into the ranking today, I had a couple of thoughts I wanted to share to get us warmed up. Just bear with me. Darkest Dungeon is kind of a weird property in its relationship with its characters, as it is vital to have characters with varied or at least distinguishable personalities, informed by backstories that both motivate their descent into dangerous land and create precedent to the ways in which they break down. On the other hand, there are a lot of things that inhibit these characters as narrative figures, as the nature of both the first and second game prevent these characters from being fully explored as people. The first uses its stress system as a method of exploring what realistically happens to a person when forced to face unfathomable horrors and survive, and while I think this works as a game mechanic, and while I do think there are interesting character moments in there, it is also true that no character is really able to go on an arc and face their demons, especially since their backstories are at best referenced in this game. While not necessarily bad, I do think the limits on character-based storytelling imposed by the system does have some drawbacks. The second game does do certain things to address this through the Shrine of Reflection and changes to the stress system. The Shrine of Reflection allows an actual look into the backstories of these different characters, which gives us both a concrete backstory as well as possible explanations for why they choose to fight this hopeless fight. Some of these are better than others. To spoil some of my character ranking thoughts early on, though I do think I failed to express myself within the video itself very well, I think the Jester's backstory does the absolute best job with the structure of the Shrine of Reflection stories. It's a complete and compelling narrative, exploring how he gained his ambition and how that ambition was manipulated and stolen from him by people who only wanted to abuse him, as well as how that wore down his mental state, leading him not only to killing them all, but to injure his hand so that he could never end up back in this state. Even trying to explain it as neutrally as possible is hard, just because of how his story uses its limited narrative to expert effect. The fourth chapter in particular has so much that can be dissected about what's going through his head, and your reading of that will likely inform your reading of why he injured his own hand, and what it is that motivates him presently. Meanwhile, there are narratives that I don't think work as well, such as the occultist. All his Shrine of Reflection events do are illustrate the event that led him to connecting with this eldritch being. This is not bad in and of itself. The Hellion story only really covers one battle and its fallout, but from that story we learn about the Hellion's culture and what it is that has motivated her in both the before and after of that battle. However, in the occultist story, we never understand what it is that's truly motivating the occultist to this point, nor do we get to see the fallout of having made this connection, nor do we see what motivates him into the dangers involved in being a Darkest Dungeon character. We can guess it might be some sort of regret for the deaths involved in making this connection, but it's hard to say, and not because he's a complex character, but because there's just so little to go off of to make a well-supported argument one way or another. I know this is supposed to be a ranking video, but just fucking bear with me for a second. The second system, the relationship system, essentially replaces afflictions and virtues in the first game, but it is still held back by the structure of the game not really allowing an exploration of this relationship and thus the characters involved. I mean, the relationship between a Jester and Leper would be so interesting to explore, as they have both suffered as a consequence of actions and desires that in no way deserve punishment. Both had seen the worst of humanity offered in people they should have been able to trust, and they had such vastly different takeaways from their experiences, yet all of that can't really be explored in the game's structure. I mean, how does Sarmenti feel when a respectful Baldwin says you would have been welcome in my court? Is that genuinely reassuring to him, or does his past experiences leave him feeling put off? I mean, people complain enough about battle slowdown as it is. Could you imagine if the battle just like stopped for like 2 minutes to to like have a little cutscene of Sarmenti being like, hey man, I don't know how I feel about that, and Baldwin's just like, oh, sorry, I didn't know. Now, there's a big question hanging over this discussion, which is, what's the point? Why does this matter? And, well, that's a difficult question to answer, because the individual narrative of these characters just isn't really the focus of this game, as it's a lot more interested in exploring the larger overarching narrative of the player's experiences, which the heroes are accessories to. I do not wish to claim this is an incorrect approach, but I do think it's worth discussing how video game characters can sometimes end up in this weird space between fully fleshed character and a vehicle for game mechanics, especially since the stress system of both games are somewhat reliant on you believing in the personalities of these characters in order to further emphasize the style and tone of the game. It's a very strange place to be in, and it leaves these characters in this interesting and half-completed state. It's hard to bring together these two different parts of narrative, of game and story, in a way that can feel as complete as a traditional linear story, at least in terms of a character-driven work. Again, I do not wish to say the focus on player experience as narrative is wrong, only that this is still a very new system of storytelling, one that can have its own strengths and flaws. Another reason I wanted to talk about the characters as they work narratively is that it is clear Red Hook Studios is interested in bringing these characters further into the spotlight. They would not have the Shrine of Reflection if they didn't want the players to care about these characters and their story. You will notice in this video that my friends and I only mention gameplay in passing, and that's because for the sake of the video I wanted to focus strictly on the characters as, well, characters. Though to a certain extent I think there is some fault in this approach. There's a lot about the characters that are communicated by their animations and their barks, and seeing a character in action is very different from hearing about a character secondhand, or even hearing their narrative secondhand, especially since some moments are conveyed in gameplay. I don't think either of my friends are really able to comprehend just how big Baldwin's titties are, so if you don't like how the ranking turned out, don't at me. But, well, I am a writer, and I am extremely passionate about character writing in particular. Since Red Hook wished to make these characters more prominent, I wanted to do a deep dive and give my take. I would love to see Darkest Dungeon explore these characters more, even if it's through side content more than it is in the main gameplay experience, even if that is seemingly less important than the gameplay aspect of their characters. Without further ado, let's begin. If anyone at Red Hook Studios is watching this, I hope you know that I have nothing but respect and even a smidgen of reverence for your work. I know we are sometimes very critical in this ranking, but it is not out of malice or hatred. It's kind of just what comes out when you're trying to explain the totality of 9 characters in an hour, and we were more focused on having a good time than really getting into the nitty-gritty details. Though, honestly, I don't think I disagree with the larger takeaways. I'm probably over-explaining myself because I just really don't want anyone to think I dislike this property or its characters. I am just very good at having opinions, and so are my friends. Also, if you're still watching, feel free to share your own thoughts in the comments. I am happy to engage with others' interpretations and talk craft.
Hello.
Hey.
Hiya.
I have gone through great suffering.
Oh no.
So see, I have been on this tireless and interminable quest that has lasted about a week to try and objectively rank the Darkest Dungeon 2 characters in a way that is very analytical and not based on opinion at all. And I tried to do this myself, and I realized that it just wasn't objective enough, and by that I mean it was fucking boring. So I needed some banter. I needed someone to, check my work. So that's when I brought you in. And
That's me.
That's you. That's you. And we spent a good deal of time, analyzing, studying, researching, experimenting, all of that good sciencey stuff. It was also not objective enough, and by that I mean the audio didn't pick you up at all. But no, this is a blessing, because there was something you said, something very smart you said while we were recording, that sort of talked about, how you need a lot of people to really validify the objectivity of things, because objectivity is very, very real.
Definitely.
So we brought your boyfriend in.
That's him.
That's him. I think with such a great brain trust we've got going on here, we can perfectly and accurately rank all of these Darkest Dungeon 2 characters in like a... Yeah.
Yeah, in an objective way.
In an objective, unbiased, rational way.
I will say, the bonus of having Johnny is also, you had originally invited me because I'm a scientist, and you were like, that gives you, grounds for objectivity. But he literally works for Watch Mojo.
I was gonna make a joke about him while working for Watch Mojo. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
His job is to rank things objectively as a career.
Yeah, so yeah, we got a writer, we got a scientist, we got a professional ranker. I mean, I think this is the perfect trio here.
Oh yeah, peak objectivity.
Peak objectivity. Is that everything I wanted to say in the intro? Other than, I guess I wanted to mention that our video fucking rocked.
It did!
It did. It fucking rocked. We said a lot of smart things, and we're probably not gonna say as many smart things in this version, because it's like, fuck.
It's later, we're tired and angry, because the first one didn't work.
Very upsetting.
We waited 2 hours for a pizza, person being Johnny, so...
And then it got there and it was like room temp.
It
was underwhelming.
Yeah, especially at room temp,
Yeah,
2 hours later.
Yeah, we were talking about how, like, well, there's lots of places now because of COVID that are very short-staffed, so that was probably what was happening with Domino's. And then the delivery driver gets there, she comes up to the door, and her hair is, like, all frazzled. And she's like, how's your night going? And I was like, good, how's yours? And then she just gives a deep sigh. Busy. I was like, yeah, I feel that.
Shout out to all of the
Hard to be mad at that point.
Yeah. Poor underpaid fast food workers, you're the real ones.
Indeed. With that, how about we honor our fast food workers by ranking some Darkest Dungeon 2 characters?
Truly no better way to honor our hardworking pandemic essential workers.
Absolutely.
Oh gosh.
Alright, let's start with the grave robber.
You want to give the jank description?
Well, yeah, so to the audience at home, my original idea for this third video of ranking was that, like, because, like, I was gonna have, like, you describe, like, repeat the descriptions from memory to Johnny.
After hearing them once.
After hearing them once last night.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I messed that up because I thought I was supposed to tell him ahead of time, so I don't get his raw reaction, but that's okay.
So, you know what, I don't know, you know what, Johnny, let me ask you, what do you know about the grave robber?
Okay, so to be fair, she told me very brief descriptions on the car ride over here.
Okay.
And part of the time I was driving, so part of the time I was concentrating on driving, so I don't remember all of them, and she said there were like 9 characters, so I wasn't going to remember them even if I wasn't driving.
Alright.
But the grave robber did sound the most interesting to me, so she robbed her own husband's grave, is that what happened?
Yes.
Which is just kind of badass in general.
It is, it's a girl boss move.
Exactly, so yeah, that stuck out in my mind, or at least in comparison to all the other characters. I was like, oh, that's actually kind of interesting. And then I don't remember the full her full story. Something with her, she came from like a wealthy house. I guess her husband passed, and then she robbed his grave, and then I don't know if she get like an addiction to it, and is that why she's dungeon crawling? Basically,
she's like thrill seeking. Yeah.
Thrill seeking. Okay,
Yeah,
so yeah, that sounded pretty interesting to me. So she actually did seem the most interesting to me. I don't know if she'll stay that way, but no, she sounded like a cool character.
All right. Then I guess we'll progress up. What's your take?
Yeah, so I didn't really tell him this. I think I kind of first put it. I was like, oh, that wasn't what I said. I initially ranked her at almost the bottom. She was second from the bottom. And in retrospect, him being like, that's so interesting, made me be like, why did I think that was not interesting? Like, what? How did we have such opposite reactions? And my answer is, I play a rogue in D&D.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny is I was like, well, that's a very typical rogue story. My rogue has the most typical rogue story of all rogues.
But you work it. Do
I?
I think you do.
I it's almost like she was like a joke character that evolved to be more. And so I guess that's why I love the rogue trope, but it is so repetitive that like I had a moment of being like, what new thing is she bringing to the table? Like, you know, there's basically 2 types of rogues. There's, I was an orphan, I was wronged, I become rogue, or I was really rich, I was wronged, I become rogue. That's it. Like, that's kind of the 2 tropes, and you pick pick whatever one. I also think maybe because I heard her second of all of the characters, I was like anticipating better characters and was like, I'm not super impressed initially, but I stand by that. Like, I still don't think that she's the most interesting thing. I also think, bonus, Johnny has never seen these characters in design yet.
Oh yeah.
I think her design was just okay.
That's true. That's true. Do you want to share, Johnny?
Yes,
Oh, yeah,
I think that might.
Design goes a long way to making a character appear cool.
That's true.
I think that might have been the biggest one, is like, I have a bias almost against rogues, ironically, despite loving them. I don't know why. I guess I'm more judgmental because I love so many of them. but also, like, the design just didn't impress me.
Alright, so she's kind of... I like the spade on her back, and I like... I don't know what any of these characters look like, so this is the first one I'm seeing, so I don't know if they get better. I'm guessing they do. But I like her design. I like her sort of... I like she's got like the potions and the stuff all equipped to her belt. Looks like she's got a lot of stuff going on, so it's pretty cool. And I like her knives. She does, resemble what I would picture a typical rogue in my head.
Yeah, she's very much like a DPS kind of roguish character.
And that's neither a negative or a positive, I guess. That's what I would expect her to look like. But I think I just like it when characters break bad, so to speak. I don't know, I just find it interesting when an upstanding citizen is sort of just like brought down as far as they can be brought down. So that's what sort of grabbed me about her in the first place. But as far as design goes, I guess kind of middle of the road. Like, I'm not impressed by it, but I don't think it's like a bad design by any means.
Yeah, I was not super impressed by the design, and the story didn't blow me out of the water.
Yeah.
So what would you rank it then? What would we rank it?
Well, I don't know if I can rank it yet. I need to know about the other people.
Well, I guess we'll put her at B, and then
B?
Which is where I started with her. I actually moved her down after learning other stories.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then also looking at other characters' designs.
I guess I should summarize my view on the Grave Robber, which is that I like her. I do. Like, here's the thing. I like all of the characters. This is kind of why I need other people, because my first ranking was very boring, because it was just like, I don't know, I kind of like all of them. There are some I very much like more than others. And, there are some that I have genuine criticism for in terms of story writing, but I don't know, like Grave Robber is just kind of fine in all regards. She doesn't have a lot of traits that particularly appeal to me, but like, I don't know, she does them fine. She's executed fine.
Yeah,
that works for me.
Knowing absolutely zero about Darkest Dungeon except for what you told me yesterday.
Yeah.
Same, basically the same interpretation. She's fine.
Alright, let's move on to the next character, which is the Hellion. Johnny, tell me what you know about the Hellion.
I don't remember the Hellion story.
Perfect. Rhiannon, tell me what you remember about the Hellion.
Okay, Hellion is a beefcake lady who is like, please let me battle, and everyone was like, no, you're not ready, and she was like, but I am, and they were like, fine, and then they put her in battle, and she was like, shit, I wasn't ready. So she ran away and hid, I think, in a tree? I vaguely recall that.
Yeah.
And then she came back, like, a whatever time later, and was like, hey, that was scary, can I come back? And everyone was like, no, what the fuck, bro, you left. And then she was exiled, and then she was like, well, whatever, I'm still gonna be a beefcake, I'm gonna get better at being a barbarian.
Yeah, basically.
So she bit off more than she could chew, and then came back and now she's, like, proving herself, essentially?
Basically, what she's trying to do now is, prove herself.
Okay. I think that's interesting. I think the whole proving yourself kind of thing would work really well. Based off of I'm aware of what Darkest Dungeon is. Mm-hmm. I didn't know anything. I've never played it, so I don't know anything about. Never knew anything about the characters until she was telling me about them. But I think that's interesting in that setting, because I know that Darkest Dungeon has permadeath. Yes. And has like stress levels and like you're like a sanity meter sort of thing that you have to deal with your characters, and if it gets too high, they can have like physical and mental effects on those characters. Yeah. So I think that that whole proving herself kind of thing, once again, never played it, but if they they pulled it off right, I think that could do interesting things with that story and with those mechanics. That does sound pretty cool. Can I see her design?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, like, I think when it comes to Darkest Dungeon, like the unfortunate thing about the way that it works is that it doesn't really allow much room to make character arcs after the point that the story of the game starts.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I think there are definitely interesting character moments that are in there, but it's like they can't really be expanded upon in like a very solid way that like a controlled narrative can.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing absolutely nothing about the gameplay, I didn't even know there was permadeath before this.
There is permadeath.
I went straight off the stories. Again, rehearing this, I still like her more than the Grave Robber, because it feels like, even though like now I know there's nowhere for her to go, it feels like there could have been.
Mm.
Like she's still a developing character.
Yeah.
which I like. Her design is great. Her design is very sexy and fun.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think I like the Grave Robber's story and character more, but
Wow.
I definitely like the Hellion's design a lot more than the Grave Robber.
I do like the Hellion's design
Yeah,
a
she's
lot.
got this whole like Viking vibe going on, which I love Vikings, and I really like her weapon. This sort of, I don't know if you call it a halberd.
It's some sort of this spear thing.
It's a long stick with a big sharp thing on the end.
I do like that kind of weapon.
No, she looks really cool.
But you like the Grave Robber story more?
Yeah, man, she robbed her own husband's grave. I just think that's so. I don't know. I just think that's really cool.
All right. Well, noted. When you die, I shall rob your grave in your honor.
I mean, I'm not gonna be using that stuff anymore, so.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I personally like the Hellion because I like narratives that sort of talk about, like, you know, like people sort of confronting the idea of like honor and shame in their societies. So I do think that's something that personally piques my interest in a lot. And also, I do like a beefcake lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am biased in that I do love a beefy woman,
Yeah.
and she is a cool beefy woman.
Indeed. Not that we're ranking with any sort of biases, though. We would never do that.
Never, absolutely not. We
Yeah.
have zero biases.
Yeah, this is objective. This is not irrational. This is very rational, and it's biased. No.
It's not biased.
It's
not
not
biased.
biased.
Insert the not. Somebody edit that in.
I'm not a good enough editor for that.
Okay, cool. We'll just
Shit.
pretend.
We'll just
Everyone
pretend.
just pretend.
Anyway, where are we ranking her?
Yeah, so Johnny thinks she's better than the Grave Robber in story.
No, other way around.
Other way around?
I think her design is better than the
sorry,
Grave
I think
Robber,
her-
but I'm more interested in the Grave Robber story. Like if I were, you know, if this were like a more story-based game where you got to explore where these like characterizations would go, I'd be more interested in seeing where the Grave Robber story goes than the Hellion. But it seems like based off of design, I'd be more interested in playing as the Hellion. If that makes sense.
Fair.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
But the
I don't know how
problem
to
is
rank
that we have if we were going by majority rules, obviously she would be higher.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
But how many we've got I always forget. We have 5 categories. I would argue that I think that they're close enough that they should sit in the same category, but I don't think it should be B. I think that's too high. I think they should both sit comfortably in C, and if I vaguely recall, I think I had them there in the first place together.
You did not.
I did not?
No.
Okay, I was totally wrong.
You actually brought the Grave Robber down just to make
That's
the
right.
Hellion's position at A more important.
That's right.
Wow.
I did think she was better, and I still think she's better. But for some reason, I thought I had dropped her. I guess I didn't. I still think that, like, based off of the general group consensus, they should now sit in the same category. But I still don't think it should be B.
You think it should be A?
No, I think it should be C.
Okay.
Well, God, see, I've already forgotten the other characters, and that's good because it means this will be more objective, right?
Yeah,
That's how it works.
The less information you have, the more objective you are.
Yes, absolutely.
We're putting her in B for now. We'll figure it
All
out.
right, whatever. Yeah, is the Grave Robber also in B?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Cool.
We'll figure it out. Let's talk about the Highwayman.
Fuck the Highwayman.
I'm a highwayman. Yeah, so she did. This is one of the ones that I do remember, but to be fair, one of the reasons that I do remember it is because she talked so much shit about him.
I did do that. I did get off the phone with you and then be like, so this fucker, the Highwayman, people like him for some reason.
Well, he's iconic.
Sure.
He is. He's iconic.
But really, what I know about him is that he did crime, and then he got caught, and then he was going to do one more job, right? And then, well, he started to sort of to grow and to feel bad about his past action, which is interesting, but I don't know. I think I need to know a bit more specifics.
Yeah, so to get into specifics. So yeah, he was in prison. He broke out of prison because he's for some reason a beefcake. This shouldn't be allowed. I think this is propaganda. But he breaks out of prison, and then he's hiding from authorities, so he's like living in sewers and eating rats, and he's having a really bad time with it. He's like sick and not doing well. He's like, I need to do another job. I have to do something to get some money. And he does, so he gets hired to rob a stagecoach.
Mm-hmm.
He goes to do that, accidentally kills a mother and child in the process.
Ooh.
And he's like, ooh, and then he's like forever trapped in the guilt. That is the prison of his mind. That's the theme.
Gotcha.
That's the narrative thread there.
How do you kill the mother and the child, man? Like, what are you doing?
He has so many bullets.
Anyway, here is this twink who definitely could not break out of prison. I'm sorry, now I actually don't hate him that much, but now I've committed to it, so...
I understand.
I will agree this is kind of an underwhelming design. He just sort of looks like a robber / criminal of the time. He's even got like the bandana mask going on. And as far as there's really not much to say.
He's hands down the worst character design. I will easily. And again, I think I'm a little biased by the character design, but not biased. I am opinionated because that's different.
Yeah.
The word bias is what makes bias.
Exactly.
But no, yeah, he's just so boring looking. And also, I don't buy, like, why were you not guilty the first time? I just don't, I'm like, I don't get it. I haven't seen the story, so maybe that's just, like, me picking up plot holes in a jank version of this guy's plot, but meh.
Do you mean, like, why didn't he feel guilty about past crimes, like, until he
killed somebody.
Yeah.
But, like, he was already in prison. Assumedly, based off the name Highwayman, I would have thought he's already killed somebody, but still, like, he's done harm.
Yeah. Maybe not a child. But, I mean, we don't know.
Maybe it was that he killed him.
If I had, like, killed people and then I killed a child, I would feel worse about the child.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. But still, like, I don't know. I was like, you just waited so long, man, to feel bad. Maybe you should have just stayed in prison. Like...
I don't know what the moral of this story is. Where do we rank?
Yeah, I mean, I think that redemption could be like it's a very interesting driving theme for a lot of characters.
Yeah, I would say redemption is definitely his drive as a character.
Yeah. So that could be very compelling. I obviously can't speak to how it's pulled off in the game. It could be very interesting. I don't know. I think it's also just been done a lot, so you would have to like bring something new to it in order to make it more compelling. But just going off of design too, it's definitely more boring than the other two that I've seen so far.
Yeah, I think that too is the other thing is like it's not a story I haven't heard before. It's a story that's given to a lot of like vigilante / criminal type characters, and I'm just like, yeah.
But have you considered the fact that he's iconic?
I have, and I don't give a shit. I mean, again, like, that's the whole point, right, is that I don't have any, like, gauge for that iconicness. I've never been on anything Darkest Dungeon. The first time I heard Darkest Dungeon was from your mouth.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Well, I guess we are being objective, rational, and unbiased here.
So we put the other two in B, right?
Yes.
Well, then I guess C? What's the bottom?
So we have S, A, B, C, and D.
I would say C for now, and then depending on what the other 6 characters are like, he might drop or raise for me. Well, I guess we'll see.
We'll find out.
But I think C is a good place to keep him in right now.
I think you're just less dramatic than me.
Maybe.
We need a little drama. We need a little spice, you know?
Yeah.
Fucking F.
Wow.
Let's move to the Jester.
Yeah.
Yeah. Johnny, tell me what you know about the Jester.
I don't. That's one of the other ones that I don't remember super well, so I'm gonna need a refresher.
Oh, well, that's a shame because I just don't like talking about the Jester at all.
Oh.
Just kidding. I love him.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the Jester. So here's the story. Here's the play-by-play. I'm gonna get into it. So basically, he was basically like this really lazy guy, kind of just like, not really doing anything. He's just kind of like playing music on the streets. Doesn't care, not up to much, whatever. As one day he's passing by his local cemetery, and he's like, hey, someone's playing music in there, and it's kind of a banger. So he goes in to like learn it, and he does in this mini game that I had a very hard time with. And then he learns it, and he's like, wow, this is really cool. I have like ambition now, and I want to be respected as a musician. It's gonna be great. So he like starts, he starts playing, he starts getting known, and eventually he gets a court summons in order to like, perform for a royal court. And he gets there, and boy, do they just not fucking treat him well. Like,
No.
they demean him, mock him, they physically, like, torture him at points. One way to get entertainment, I guess, but definitely a way that, he did not like. And at a certain point, he was like, you know what? Fuck it. And so he's performing this song that he had learned so long ago, and as he's getting to the end of it, he's like, my personal interpretation of that mini game is that, like, he's going through it, and he's just, like, getting really mad because it's like, he had this ambition that was just taken from him in this horrible way, and he's just like, I'm gonna murder them all. And
Wow.
then he does. He just murders all of them. And he's like, LMAO, I am not doing that again. And then he, like, fucks up his hand, so now he can't play that song anymore. And then that's it. That's the story.
Well, that is actually really interesting. I like the concept of a person, like, having this dream and just, like, putting all of their passion into it, and then just having that sort of, like, I guess I shouldn't say I like this, because that sounds messed up. But
Well, look, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, from, like, a storytelling point, I think that's really interesting to have a character like that and then just have it, like, ripped away from them in such, like, a messed up, like, sort of traumatic way, and then to have them just snap. I think that's really interesting. Also, I'm looking at his design right now, and the sort of, like, psychotic clown can be really overdone in terms of, like, how it's designed. I really like that his face isn't painted; he's wearing a mask, so it's a little bit more subtle. I like that he's sort of like gangly looking, sort of. I don't want to, like, compare him to the Joker, but you know how the Joker, he's not very muscular, so you don't expect him to be a fighter, but he's just so chaotic that you can't really tell what he's going to do. So he's sort of got that vibe, except I like the design. I like the subtler design a lot more. He's got the sort of Jester hood, but it's not like, sticking up and looking all happy. It's actually, like, laying down like it's actually depressed like he is, which I think is really cool. I like his weapons a lot too. It's sort of, I don't know the name of it, but it's like it's like a handheld scythe. And he even has his little lute on the back. So I like his design and his story a lot. And like on his trousers, they're, like, all patched together. Like, you can tell he's sort of been, like, living on his own for a long time on the streets, sort of. I like.
He's got the flattest of asses.
He does. He has a very flat ass.
He has no meat on those bones.
He's
but
a gangly motherfucker.
Yeah, no, I really like that.
I made that exact same point in the initial video, that I loved that he had a recognizably Jester design that did not feel like anybody else's.
Yeah, it's not as, like, hot topic as maybe I was expecting.
Because, like, I would describe his look, like, because, like, they had, like, these backstory moments, and, like, you can, like, see their old models, and I would describe his old model, like, as very much like a hot topic star. Okay. But, like, in a funny way, I think. Yeah, I also like him in just that, like, his general vibes are that, like, he actually does seem to be, like, having a good time, kind of just, like, he has, like, a super inefficient fighting style because he's just, like, spinning around on the battlefield like some kind of asshole.
Nice.
He's definitely, like, all the characters will kind of make jokes of themselves every now and then, but he definitely, like, makes the most jokes of anyone. But, like, also, I think in the first game especially, you can see, like, when he breaks down, he, like, breaks down hard. Like, he is barely hiding, like, a total ragey cunt.
Well, I dig the Jester.
But, so, I think he's great. I think he's pretty top tier.
I'd put him in A.
A is not the highest.
Well, I know, but it's above everyone else.
Okay.
I don't want to put anyone in S until I've heard everything.
Fair.
Just like I don't want to put anyone in D, but unless I hear something incredible or something just so shit.
Funny enough, I said, I don't want to put anyone in S, and then I went, you know what, put him in S. So, I'm glad you're here again. I'm just overly dramatic is what we're learning today.
Listen, we need the drama.
It's a good balance. But I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up in S at the end of this, because I dig his design. I dig his story a lot too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
For
pretty.
sure.
He's pretty cool. I like him a lot. He's definitely my favorite. But I'm not biased about that or anything. Let's move on to the Leper. Johnny.
I don't remember.
Cool.
Oh.
Rhiannon.
Alright, so the Leper was this king who was just the greatest of kings. Real loved by the people, ruler who cared a lot, and his advisors were just like, hey, sick people suck, you shouldn't interact with them. I think it might be, like, very similar, almost word for word from as you described.
Basically.
And he was like, well, that's awfully fucked up. I'm gonna not take that advice, and I'm still gonna interact with sick people. But unfortunately, because, you know, they don't understand how plagues work back then, I guess.
Yeah.
He didn't wear a mask to his social
Not
gathering.
a social distancing king, I will be honest.
Unfortunate, you know, and so he does contract leprosy. And I guess as he gets weaker, or as time goes on, I'm assuming has to hide his physical appearance and everything that comes with, you know, the hardships of leprosy. His advisors are then like, we should kill him and take his power.
Yeah.
And he goes, fuck no, you're not gonna do that. And then murders all of the people who were plotting to murder him, but then still decides to be a benevolent, kind king and see all of the good in the world, which I think is great.
Yeah.
And he's just doing his best. He's doing his best to be a good ruler to his people, and I appreciate that.
Well, he abdicated, but...
Well, you know, it's not his fault that everybody wanted to murder him. He's still doing his best.
That's true. He is doing his best.
Sorry, I'm looking at his design right now. I think it's a really cool design. This sort of, I like the armor, and I know that all of this is to cover up the leprosy, but it makes him sort of look like this, like a sentry, I guess. And I like it's not just a sword; it's sort of like broken off on the edge, so it gives it a really cool worn look, and I think aesthetically that looks really cool. So I like his design. I don't love his story. I like the whole...
Y'all just don't get it. Y'all don't understand how big his titties are.
No, I like the fact that he murdered everyone that was plotting to murder him. That's a boss move. I don't love the fact that... I mean, I like that he's a benevolent king, but if someone... Like, they're sick. Like, you gotta... I know you're in, like, medieval times or whenever this game takes place, but, like, if... I know you want to meet your people and you want to be the loving king and you want to support everyone, but at the same time... Gotta look out for yourself.
That's fucked up,
It's just
Johnny.
kind of a...
Princess Diana was
dumb...
told not to interact with cancer patients, and she did anyway.
Okay, well, cancer isn't contagious.
Okay, but they didn't know back then, did they, what was and what was not contagious?
I suppose not, but still. No, I like that he murdered the traitors. And I like his design, but it's not as strong of a story, I think, nearly as strong of a story as Jester, for me personally, or even Grave Robber or Hellion. But it's better than the Highwayman.
I'm glad we all agree that the Highwayman is the bottom tier.
Y'all drag me down here.
I guess not you, but you...
Look, he is iconic.
Okay, but is his story iconic, or is just... There we go!
Look,
listen,
I need objective.
He's like the character that you start with in a game, and it's just like, this is the most well-balanced, so that anyone can play as him. And I don't know if that's how this game works at all. But just based off of his design and his story, it seems like your starting character, and then if you want to lean towards one thing or another, you would go with the others. That's how the vibe that he gives to me. So he's just like, he's well balanced, but not the most interesting.
The boring default character you use until you get somebody better and then you never touch again.
Yes, that's what I was going for.
I mean, kind of.
Wonderful. I totally disagree, though. I think the Leper has a great story, but you know I am a sucker for the character that is doing the best they possibly can, no matter the consequences. I love Mia Peter Parker. And this just seems like Peter Parker as if he was a ruler in medieval times, like just doing his best, not caring much about his own well-being, but more so his people's. I do have the benefit of you actually read me an excerpt from the final.
I got pretty passionate about it yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I do have, like, the little bit that, like, it was your favorite character, so I maybe got a little extra. But even so, like, again, I'm a sucker for that kind of trope. And I loved just as much as you did that he came out of all of this hardship and still decided to see the world as a beautiful place and see more good than bad, even after being, having the worst things happen to him. Like, he did a good thing and had a bad outcome. He decided to interact with the sick and got sick, and he still didn't take that as like oh, I'm so bitter about it. He was like, well, it is what it is. I don't know all the parameters of this. I got sick. I'm still gonna do whatever the fuck I'm doing. Good for him.
Yeah, and I guess I do like that bit about him too, like the kind of guy where it's just like, oh, he's so friendly until you cross him, and then he will murder you as quickly as he possibly can. And I like that bit about it, and I know that there are other characters out there that are sort of have like a similar vibe to them, where it's just like they're a big cuddly teddy bear, but they're also like this beast of a person that could just unleash
He's
terror
such
on
a badass.
You
Yeah.
love a big softie.
you.
His tits huge. I cannot emphasize enough how huge his tits are.
Beautiful. I think that he is one step behind the Jester. I think the Jester is my favorite.
Yeah.
And like, I think part of me too didn't want him to be my favorite because I am so fucking sick of like clown archetype. Like, I'm
Yeah.
I understand.
yeah, I'm just so fucking sick of it.
Yeah.
But he's
He's
fucking
well-written.
cool.
He's
like,
well written. He's
yeah,
cool. It's
his
like,
design's so good.
yeah, like honestly, in the first game, the Jester's vibes were just fucking rancid. Like, he sucked. But then, like, I don't know, something about the second game. Maybe it was the spinning. I was just like, hey, actually, this guy's pretty cool.
Yeah, where do you think the Leper should sit? So you think below the Grave Robber?
No, I think about the same level as Grave Robber and Hellion for me right now, and above the Highwayman. So I'd put him in B.
All right, he's in B right now.
I disagree. I think
You want him in A?
I want him in A and the Jester in
In
S,
S.
but we'll
adjust.
Decide, we'll adjust.
Yeah.
We'll adjust. We gotta adjust our scales. We gotta know there's a term for it. Man at arms.
Yeah. All right, the Man at Arms. That's who I fucking forgot about. I straight up forgot about him.
Oh, tragic.
So you've never heard
So
of
no, I've
description
never
of
even
him.
heard that
Alright.
name yet. Okay.
Well, tell me about the Man at arms.
God, honestly, so now that I realize he's super forgettable, I'm just like, wow, I ranked him too high.
You ranked him in D.
Okay, yeah,
That's
too
too
high.
Wow.
Okay, so from what I remember, I very remember specifically saying he's like a worse Hellion. So he was like a general or whatever, and he commanded this sort of group, and then he led them all to their deaths. This is a very classic trope. And
Yeah, I
he
was gonna
lives with
say,
the guilt of that.
Yeah.
Is that it? Did I miss anything big?
Basic. That's more or less it. He politicked his way into a higher position than he was really worth.
Okay.
Led army to his doom. Got horrible like PTSD and guilt from the whole thing. Has basically been living with that for the rest of his life.
Yeah, if you're going like comparing two people who's had the same result of I went into battle was not what I thought it was, I now have to live with that. The Hellion is infinitely more interesting than the Man at Arms, but I guess they do have different circumstances around their story.
Yeah, because he's actually leading groups of people, right?
Yeah, whereas the Hellion, like, she wasn't knowledgeable about battle. She had like an incorrect perception, I guess.
Yeah.
Whereas I guess she should have known better.
Yes, I've seen the Man at Arms character in so many things, and I think that like guilt and like trying to atone for that is interesting. But every time I see that character before they realize that, I hate that character, and I know they're gonna mess it up, and they always prove me right. I can't say I'm liking this guy too much so far, but let me look at his design. Of course, he has an eye patch.
Yeah. There's like a 50% chance he tore that eye out himself.
Right.
Don't really know for sure.
Yeah, I like his big bushy mustache, I guess. But I mean the armor, the shield, at least he's using a Morning Star?
Yeah.
Or a mace or whatever. At least he's using that instead of a more generic weapon like just a sword or an axe. But still, for the most part, I think this design is pretty generic.
He looks like every general ever. It's like Colonel Sanders, actually.
medieval Colonel Sam.
I am actually tempted to go back and change something because I said that the Highwayman story was my least favorite, but I fucking forgot this guy existed.
Yeah.
And I think that's telling. I think that I was just so pent up in, like, hating the Highwayman. I also thought it was funny. I said he was boring, and then you were like, he's, like, the most iconic character. Like, that was hilarious, so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna double down on this. But in retrospect, a character whose story in general, I can't even remember is worse than one, like, worse than the Highwayman's, where I was just like, yeah, that's boring, whatever.
Sounding pretty D tier to me.
Well then.
Garbage character.
In you go, buddy. Let's talk about the occultist.
Oh boy.
Johnny, do you know anything about the occultist?
God, I remember you talking about the occultist, but I don't remember their story.
Rhiannon.
I think their story is that they don't have a story, is the thing about the occultist.
Well, that would explain
what I said, word for word.
They have an eldritch being living in their head, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, that's already kind of cool.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was like, that looks...
That's the extent of it.
Oh.
That's it. And, like, I guess one time you said, like, there was a lot of, like, boring talk. Like, one time they had a decision and then it wasn't good and there was no consequences to that.
But it was just never explored.
Okay, so, like, he just doesn't have... There's just nothing. There's just nothing there.
Like, all his story events do is establish the fact that he, at one point, got, like, was, like, dealing with an eldritch being and, like, harnessing its power and living with that. But, like, that's it. That was already established by the very nature of the character, and it gives us very little else.
Yeah, that's kind of unfortunate, because having an eldritch being, like, live inside your head would be interesting, but if that's all that there kind of is to this guy, that's a little disappointing.
Yeah.
Looking at his design right now, it's not really that remarkable. I like I guess he's holding a little skull in his hand that has a candle sticking out of the top of it, and that sort of looks like he sort of like a talisman or something that he might use in his attacks. I'm not really sure. But yeah, the design itself, a little underwhelming. Not as bad as the Man-at-Arms, because that one is just super generic, but...
I like it better than the Grave Robbers.
Yeah.
I do, too. I think I like it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna make the same argument I made in the original take of this, that a nothing story can sometimes be better than a bad one, because it allows the fan base to fill in the blanks. And just to reiterate, the Joker should have never had a fucking story. I thought it was more interesting when you had to fill in the blanks with your imagination.
But here's the thing. I mean, I would argue that, like, there's almost no real blanks to fill.
Yeah,
with this character.
So that's the thing, is if it didn't give him that mystique and, like, the outlines of a story where somebody else could fill it in, then there's nothing, the fandom can't work with nothing, which is unfortunate. But I still feel like I would put him above the Man-at-Arms, just because cool design and, like, just I'm a sucker for, like, two beings in one mind. Mm-hmm. But what is your take on this?
What, two beings in one mind?
No, just where the occultist should sit.
Oh, I'd probably put him in C. That's where Highwayman is right now, I think. Yeah. But you guys seem to like his design more than I do. I think it's. I don't have like a real problem with it. I think it's fine.
I wouldn't put him higher than C.
Yeah, I think C is appropriate. You know, if we had the original audio of our conversation last night, we would have the descent into Garfield fanon that I talked about in relation to this character. Because, like, here's what I think should happen. I think, I'll sort of, like, summarize, like, my idea for this character based on Garfield fanon. Is that I think we should get into, like, we should be able to see his life and see that it kind of fucking sucks. Like, you know, he's like a divorced dad. He's like, he got fired. He doesn't have any friends, he doesn't have any hobbies, so he gets, like, really, really into this occult shit. He starts to sort of, like, reinvigorate himself a little bit. He's got, like, people he knows, and he's got a hobby. But he gets too into it. He gets too deep into it. And then he ends up, possessed by an eldritch being that's sort of representative of that kind of, like, depressive state he was in and how he was just kind of unable to escape it. Or alternatively, it could have gone more into exploring, like, the relationship between said being and the occultist. Either could have worked. I needed more of a before or more of an after.
Yeah. This is what I mean, though, by, like, letting fandoms fill the blanks. Like, that's an interesting, like, I'm already compelled by this hypothetical
Right.
should have been story.
Yeah.
And that makes me want to like him more, that you gave him this potential.
Like, here's the thing, is that, like, I'm a writer. Like, what
Yeah,
if,
that's true.
what if I had just literally written that for the character? Then the character would just be better.
Yeah.
Fair. Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. We will not allow your ability to write a good story out of almost nothing raise him higher than he should be. But I do appreciate your ability to like write a good story out of nothing.
Yeah.
thank you.
Very fun and sexy of you.
Red Hook Studios, I know you are watching this. Hire me. I have so many benefits to go along with it.
Very, very cool, very fun, very sexy.
Yeah, that's
Can't
true.
say it enough.
And with that, we shall move to the Plague Doctor. Johnny, tell me about the Plague Doctor.
I don't know anything about the Plague Doctor. I only remember a few of them.
Perfect. Rhiannon.
The Plague Doctor was a medical scientist, which means we are kin. And so medical physiological science person. She had this colleague she didn't like that much who died. Professor she didn't like that much who died. And she decides to ignore the IRB board and all of the parameters for science and to do her own illegal science on this guy's dead body. She successfully somewhat brings him back from the dead, but he's like this screeching, pained, horrifying, mass that's like just falling apart. She tries her best to keep him together, and eventually, accepts that she's failed and kills him out of just to put him out of his misery, and then was like, well, that was terrible and I am scarred for life, and then leaves whatever facility she was working for, I guess,
probably at some point,
to go do other things.
Yeah.
And that's what I've gleaned from her. Did I get that right?
Yeah, basically it, yeah.
So her professor of hers, who she doesn't like, dies.
Yes.
So why does she want to bring him back if she doesn't like him?
Well, I guess,
Or is it just like, or is it just because
it was a convenient corpse.
Okay.
Like, she was like walking into the fucking study hall.
So she was like already like, I want to dabble in necromancy.
Yeah, she was already like into dabbling. She was like wanted theorems to test. She needed a body, and she was like, shit, this is so convenient.
Right. Well, that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she's really like that. She's just like,
I do like her more on like with the knowledge that she is kind of like funny and has a tongue-in-cheek attitude. Like, I appreciate that. I'm probably a little biased, not biased, the other word.
Is it opinionated?
Opinionated, skewed, whatever, because I am actually a biological anthropologist, so I'm like, same hat! In another universe where, ethics doesn't exist, and necromancy is
ethics
real.
really doesn't exist in this universe. It, like, super doesn't exist.
So what is it that's, why is she in the dungeon? Like,
That's a really good... I can't answer that question for half of these characters,
Oh, okay.
honestly.
I was just curious,
it's kind of, you kind of have to guess and extrapolate. It did establish that she had some pretty serious guilt about the whole thing,
yeah.
PTSD levels of, oh, holy shit, that was a bad idea. So I think it's a combination of, trying to do something good to counteract that shit, and probably a little bit. She really likes having dead bodies to look at. To just sort of do her shit on.
Gotcha, fair enough. I'm looking at her design right now. I actually really like it. I know that, the Plague Doctor sort of look has been done a lot in, lots of different stories and different games. But I like this design right here. I like the long, flowing robe. I like that she's got the shoulder pieces with, the spikes sort of sticking out. And she's got this sort of, glowing, fizzing orb that I guess is a weapon. And even, her dagger is sort of, it's got, a sort of winding blade, it's not straight.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a knife that I can't quite place. I was like, I've seen some kind of knife somewhere where it's not a straight blade, but it's really curved and wavy like water, and I'm like, it reminds me of that thing that I can't remember. Yeah, I like her design a lot. I think it's an interesting take on the Plague Doctor look, and I think that her story, not quite as compelling as a couple of the other ones, but I like that it's sort of dark and funny, and I dig that about her. I like the Plague Doctor.
I do like her. I like her. We are one, two
Yeah.
women of science. I think that she should sit. I definitely like her more than the Hellion, easily. I
Yeah.
think she should be below the Jester, and I think she should be below the Leper personally. I don't know how you would place her.
For me personally, I think I would put her in between Jester, and then I think we've got Hellion, Grave Robber, and someone else in B. So
the
if-
Leper is also in B.
Yeah, so I think if we like raised Jester to S,
Alright.
and then put Plague Doctor in A, that's probably where I would place her.
Yeah, I'm happy with the Plague Doctor being an A. I don't think she's top tier.
Yeah.
But I do like her. I again, she's got a cool design too.
She's
We
got
love
a cool
Plague
design.
Doctor mask.
I like her curiosity to sort of mess with things that she shouldn't be messing with.
Mhm.
I think that's interesting. I would probably play as her and Jester. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, they both make up my my main team comp in
Nice.
Darkest Dungeon too. So, and then last one is the Runaway.
Who I only almost forgot.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Unlike the Man of Arms, I did remember them last second though. I literally though. I finished the Runaway description and was like, I'm pretty sure that's everyone. Okay, so the Runaway is an orphan who is, as orphans are, abused mostly by fire, using like a hot poker. And so she eventually escapes that bad situation and actually does find loving parents who do want to take care of her. But because of the abuse she went through, she has like a lingering like affinity for fire, and that results in her accidentally burning down her home with her new parents in it, and ultimately still being left alone.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah, and I will say, like, first things first, like, I actually love that in the design that hot poker reappears. I'm going to take it as, like, a metaphor of, like, it is the ultimate instrument of her misery, and so she continues to propagate it. Yeah, it's like the same hot poker. I mean, it made her miserable as an orphan, caused her to run away, and then that same misery caused her to burn down her house later so it was like a ripple effect of the abuse.
Yeah.
Well, that is a depressing character story.
None of them are happy.
No, I guess none. I know. I guess none of them have. They're not in this game because their lives were going well.
Yeah.
I really like that bit about her using a hot poker sort of as her weapon. So like incorporating her story into like a weapon that she uses. I think that's really cool. The rest of her design reminds me of the Hobbits, which is. I mean, she's got the cloak. She's got like the tattered. She's also just an orphan, so she's short. She's a kid. She's got the pack on. She's got shaggy hair. So just looking at her, I'm like, this looks like a Frodo's worst day, basically.
It does. She does look like Frodo's worst day.
That's neither a bad nor a good thing. That's just what it reminded me of. But no, I really like her weapon. And I really like. She's mostly covered, but I think her right arm is bare, so you can kind of see all of these different scars on it. So she's got a really like tattered appearance too. Like her pants are all like torn around the ankles. Her cloak looks like ripped to shreds. I think that's very cool. So I like the design a lot. The story is pretty dark, which I do dig.
But it is the typical orphan story.
It kind of is.
I will say, like, I was genuinely surprised when you told me, like, oh, she found loving parents, and I was like, oh, really? And then you were like, and then they died, and I was like, oh, okay, like, I was waiting for it, almost. So it's not, like, the most original story out there, but it is, like...
I mean, I'm a proponent of, if it works, it works.
Yeah, it's still compelling, so I really can't complain about it that much. I like her more than the Grave Robber, personally. I think a lot of my problem with the Grave Robber is, like, Queen, you were rich, like, do you really have problems, I guess?
Well, her husband brought them into debt.
Okay. But, like, when you killed him, like, did you not, whatever.
Oh, you know what? He yelled at her.
Maybe I just don't like rich people. Maybe I just was like...
Hey, that's valid.
Yeah.
I was like, you were rich once, you're... No. I don't know. maybe I just have rogue bias, but I like the Runaway more, personally. What do you like? Because she was initially, when you first heard the quick-fire descriptions, your favorite.
Yeah, no, I think I like the Runaway more than the Grave Robber and maybe the Hellion too. I wouldn't say I like her much more. Like, I don't know if I like her as much as the Plague Doctor, but I really like the hot poker weapon. I think that's very creative and cool.
Actually, I think I like the Hellion more than the Runaway. I think I
Yeah.
disagree with you there. Just a little bit.
Fair enough.
I don't know. Is that all of them?
Yeah, that's all of them.
Alright.
We gotta decide.
I'd put Runaway in A.
Okay.
Alright, let me see what we currently
Yeah.
have. Let's...
I used a random token for the Runaway because this is a Darkest Dungeon 1 tier list and I couldn't find one for 2, so...
Oh, is Runaway, like, for only in the second one?
Runaway is new for the second
Okay.
game. Yeah.
Okay, so that one's our Runaway. Alright, so we have currently the Jester in S tier, the Plague Doctor and the Runaway in A, the Grave Robber, the Leper, and the Hellion in B, the Occultist and the Highwayman in C, and the Man-at-Arms in D.
Man-at-Arms is definitely the bottom.
Yeah, Man-at-Arms is the worst one, easily. Followed closely by the Highwayman. I still want to say that is the worst one, but again, the situation reveals itself. I think the Leper should be higher, personally. I really like the Leper.
Agree. Like, the Leper isn't even my favorite character, but, like, I think he should be in, like, S+++. I don't know what it is about him. He's perfect.
Yeah. So you think he should be an S. I think I really like him. But you really don't like him that much.
It's not that I don't like him that much. To me, he seemed just middle of the road compared to, like, everyone. So I'm comfortable with him in B, but probably going to be outvoted on that. Which is fine.
Do you like him? But you still like the Grave Robber better than him?
I like her story more than his, but I like his design more than hers.
I think we just put him in A.
We'll just put him in A.
Let's put him in A.
Yeah.
He gets to be in A. You've been outvoted.
That's fine.
He's earned it, I think.
He has.
He does have leprosy.
You know,
been a rough go at it.
Yeah.
He has had a rough go at it. I'm happy with most of this.
Yeah, Jester by far to me sounded the most interesting.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Jester is so well designed. It's just a really good overall vibe to Jester.
It takes something that has been done a lot and makes it unique and original, I think. Which props to them for doing that.
I don't think I don't think the Runaway should be an A, and I am reluctant to put the Plague Doctor in A, but out of respect for you liking them both more than the Leper, who we forced you to allow to be an A.
Well, where would you put them?
I might let the Plague Doctor sit, but I think the Runaway should be in B.
But the hot poker.
That is a very cool design aspect.
Yeah.
But I also, as soon as I was told that the Runaway is an orphan, I was like, okay, well, they're abused. And then you were like, they're abused. I'm like, okay, well, and I was, slightly surprised, but she had parents, and I was like, are they gonna die? And you were like, they die. And I was like, okay. The thing about the Leper that I like is that it's a little bit different, whereas, the Runaway doesn't feel all that different, except for that, little design aspect. Same with the, Plague Doctor, at least she's got a little bit of a different thing going on.
Yeah.
Although it is, still... as soon as they're like, oh, she was gonna raise the dead, I'm like, well, that's not gonna go well.
Well, look, nothing goes well in this game.
Yeah, that's fair.
I would be okay with bumping Runaway down to B. But I think Plague Doctor should stay in A.
Okay, I'm okay with Plague Doctor being an A. Let's bump the Runaway down one more. Also, and then it looks like a bell curve, and that makes me happy.
I do like that it looks like a bell curve. I mean, this is so rational. It's so rational and objective when it's a bell curve.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is peak rationality. And I think, with it being a bell curve, I am going to be satisfied with this, even if I still want to say, just out of spite, that the Highwayman is garbage. Have I said that I think the Highwayman is garbage? I don't think I've said that yet.
Emma mentions that the Leper has big titties.
I'm not sure that you have. Wow. In fact, no.
We should reconsider.
We should reconsider because the leper has big titties. Did you factor in the big titties, Johnny?
I did not, to be honest. That might change my entire stance.
As it should.
Yeah.
As it should. Yeah.
Bell curve, nice and satisfying.
Nice and
All right.
satisfying.
Well, we did it. We objectively ranked these characters.
Again.
Again.
This is the third time I have done this.
It's only my second time. It's your first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First time. Went pretty well.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so glad.
Yeah, man. I am so sweaty. Thank you all for joining me.
You're welcome.
Absolutely.
I think
Anytime.
we did a great job here. I think this is so unopinionated. It's really cool.
None of us have any opinions about anything at all.
Yeah, no, this is just the facts.
And if you disagree, you're fucking wrong.
Yeah, if you disagree, you're wrong. If you disagree, I can't really think of a funny threat. Just leave a mean-spirited comment.
Yes. I made a
guess I
joke
don't-
about printing out mean-spirited comments and keeping them on my desk. I'll do that.
Alright, excellent. Oh, yeah.
The funniest one wins.